best way to describe this season was that we got exposed to a whole lot of different stuff that we weren't expecting. It was kind of the flip side of when Carolina brought in Mac Brown in football. We were eye-open to seeing the program back to being ran like a national title contender, and it was a lot of fun during the last football season. Well, this year we got a dose of reality with what it's like to be not very great in college basketball, and that can end for a very long 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. I mean, that was pretty much what ended up happening. I actually like that comparison. It's kind of weird as the football team was trending up, the basketball team was trending down. But yeah, I just, if there's anybody that's thinking that this is going to hang around for a while, I don't see it. I mean, I know that you can look at this year and say, well, look at the talent that was brought in this year, and this team really still struggled. I get that. I get thinking that maybe the one and done way of life is not the way to go, because I'm with everybody on that. I'm not a huge fan of the one and done lifestyle, and I don't think that Roy Williams is either. But at the same time, I feel like next year's class, I mean, you're going to have some guys that, even though they probably will be one and done, it feels like maybe Roy Williams is going to have, he's going to know how to adjust. He's going to have to, because that's just part of it now, especially if he's going to recruit these top guys. But I feel like maybe this just wasn't a great fit this year for Cole Anthony and Armando Bacot coming in. Now, the good thing about Armando Bacot is that he's almost certainly going to come back next year. I think with Bacot, it was more the fact that he just really wasn't maybe as talented or as ready for what we were expecting from him as his star rating suggested, which is not necessarily a horrible thing. I mean, you're going to run into times like that. Look at the guys that stayed 4 years that won national championships. Joe Barry, Theo Pinson. Those guys were 5-star players at one time. So it's not your talent. If you're a 5-star, that doesn't automatically mean that you should come in, tear it up, and move on to play at the NBA level. Not every 5-star is going to do that. Unfortunately, I think that's what everybody was kind of expecting, really including us. And we were wrong on that, but he's going to come back next year. I feel like the guys that are coming in next year, when you've got not one, but two extremely talented bigs, and a guy in Walker Kessler that I feel just gives you what you were kind of looking for, but didn't know you had really until this year in Luke May. Everybody used to complain last year or the last couple of years, well, I don't like the way that we have to space the floor with Luke May. Well, now with Walker Kessler, not only are you going to get a guy that can shoot the ball at the level that Luke May can from the perimeter, he's a guy that has the size to play inside. That was always the biggest complaint, was that there was no size with Luke May, even though really, as we look back on it from this year, probably shouldn't have been complaining that much, because Luke May did a lot of things that we didn't realize until after this season. But I just don't see, I think Carolina's going to be perfectly fine. It's an off year, and I think, honestly, it's probably good for the fan base, because it's time, it's years like this where it's gonna test how true of a fan you are, and it's a year like this that makes you realize how lucky you are to be a fan of a team that is this good, a team that, when they lose double-digit games in a season, most of the time you say, well, it wasn't really a very successful regular season. Now it kind of gives you a little perspective and makes you think, okay, well, maybe when we used to complain about, Marcus Page's freshman team and how that team really struggled. And, I mean, even when you complained about the 2010 team that wasn't all that great at all, it makes you put it into perspective that, look, things can be a lot worse than we've seen over, the past decade. So I think it's a nice reality check for Tar Heel fans, and it'll be one that I don't think will be one that'll hang around for long. I feel like this next year, this team will be right back to competing for I mean, an ACC title for sure, and I think still possibly a national championship, just because it is North Carolina, it is Roy Williams, and they are bringing in a lot of talent.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I thought the whole time when we could tell that the season was going to go the direction that it went, I never once thought, well, this is the new reality. No, this isn't Matt Doherty, Carolina basketball. And we had Matt Doherty on last summer and had a great conversation with him, and we love him to death. This isn't what this is going to be. It was just a bump in the road, and Carolina is they're bringing in a lot of talent. And you're going to have a lot of talent, we believe, back next year. We're still awaiting on some of those decisions to come out. The only gun that, outside of the seniors that you're probably losing as of right now is Cole Anthony. Brendan Marks said yesterday there's no way he comes back, and it may be for the better because, like you mentioned, the fit. I don't think he fit either. I think once Roy Williams lost Kobe White, you had to put some overdrive in his recruitment because the point guard position is so important in the game of basketball, but even more important in how Carolina just runs its whole entire program. If you don't have a point guard, this is what happens. Not saying the Cole Anthony is a point guard, but when you miss 11 games, Carolina started 4 point guards this year, the most ever under Roy Williams. That's why you saw the kind of results that you got. So, and I've also made comments that look at the 3 years that Carolina's won a national championship. It's normally been fueled by something. 05, it was the fact that most of those guys were an embarrassment to the program that had been around for 2 or 3 years because they were at the end of the Matt Doherty era and when Roy Williams came back to take over the program. 09 was the 08 disappointment, losing to Kansas in the Final Four. 17 was a 16 team losing on a buzzer beater in the national title game. This is a different sense of motivation, a different sense of fuel because you're the worst team that Roy Williams has ever had. We know how competitive he is. He's going to be more pissed off. He's going to be more animated. You already let him down one time. You don't want to let him down again. So I think 2020 and 2021 is going to be a very interesting year. I'm a huge fan of all the talent they got coming in, albeit it's going to be young, but I love talent as much as anybody. So I'm with you. I don't think that this is going to be something that we got to get accustomed to. Just a hiccup. Carolina will be back next year competing for ACC titles. And like I always say, if you're competing to win your conference, you're competing to win a national title. That's the expectation. I think they'll be back to that next year. So anything else from you before we get out of here?
No, I mean, yeah, I know you asked a few fans some questions, and we put them in some of the Facebook groups, so it was a little tough to track down some of the answers that we received. But, I mean, a lot of them were really just kind of the same. I know one that was on the actual initial post right on the page was a GIF of Charles Barkley saying terrible. One of them, tiring. I mean, it was kind of really just a lot of the same things. One of the groups got some run. One of the ones that I thought was pretty spot on was one of the guys that listens to us quite often, David Swink. He said roller coaster, and I think that was. I feel like he's kind of there on that. I feel a lot of people when they hear that, they might think, okay, well, look at the 6-game losing streak, the 7-game losing streak. And it's like, okay, I get that, but there were times throughout the season where, you have the 6-game losing streak, you come back, you get the wins against NC State and Miami. All of a sudden, you're sitting there saying to yourself, okay, well, if we put things together here on the back half, Cole Anthony's coming back, we can still make the NCAA tournament. Then you have the 7-game losing streak. You come back, you beat NC State, and you beat Syracuse, Wake Forest to make it 3 straight, and you're sitting there thinking, even after they lose the Duke game, all you got to do is make a run in the ACC tournament, and we think it's a possibility. This team has shown us something. There's some life in this team. If there's a team that can do it, it's this team because they seem to be up to the task, and they got Roy Williams as coach, and it didn't come to fruition. So, yeah, I think roller coaster was a pretty good definition of it. And we got a ton more answers. For some reason, I can't track them down in the groups, but I know there were a lot of people that ended up submitting their answers, and for that, we thank you. But a lot of it was really just the same. Disappointing. I saw a lot of that. Troubling, stuff like that. But I think for the most part, most people realize that, like we just said, this team will bounce back. This is not something that's going to become normal. And I think there will be, as we go throughout the offseason, we're going to do, of course, the breakdowns on a lot of these guys and tell you about their seasons and try to figure out, just like we did last year, how they can improve next year. But I think as we get closer towards next season and we turn away from this season, there's going to be a lot of positivity.
As you mentioned, we are in off-season mode. That does not mean that the content is going to stop, whether it's on the podcast or the website. And so what we're going to do, we're going to encourage you guys to still be going to the website, HeelToughBlog.com. This past week, I wrote the recap for the 2019-2020 season, a month-by-month breakdown of what the basketball team went through. You can check that article out. Also, Mac Brown landed 2 more recruits on the football side of things. Anthony wrote about those commitments. We're also going to be having awards handed out for the basketball team. We're going to have player breakdowns and even some fun topics that always revolve around the program that'll be both written about and podcasted about. So you can check all that out on HeelToughBlog.com. We also going to encourage you guys to like and review the podcast. You can find us on every major podcasting platform, most notably Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn. You name it, the Roy's Boys podcast is there. Give us a like, give us a review. Most importantly, we encourage you guys to subscribe. That way you get your episode after every time we upload a new one. Well, with that, I want to thank Anthony for taking some time as we are practicing social distancing to come on, talk a little Carolina basketball as we are now in the off-season mode. We want to thank you guys for listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.